Welcome, welcome. Happy Friday, everybody. TGIF. Welcome everybody to Be Free TV, where we'll be talking about freedom and how freedom-based solutions to government-manufactured issues can make the lives of everyday people better and more prosperous and more peaceful. So thank you for joining us tonight. Hit that like button, hit that share button. Show us your heart reacts or your angry reacts to if we say something you don't like, but please don't throw tomatoes through the screen. Just definitely appreciate you joining us here today. As you know, we've been focusing on topics that affect insurance and healthcare and government at large. Many of the things that I've been talking about on the campaign trail for a couple of years now, running for state insurance commissioner, but bringing in others to share ideas, to work on solutions, show how we can collaborate in Olympia to make your lives better is what I'm all about. And I'm grateful for today's episode and today's guest, Mr. Allan Acosta, who is running for State House, State Legislative District number 22, Position 1. And Allan's somebody that I consider a friend, somebody that encourages me and challenges me from a distance, just watching his energy and his passion for people. And I am grateful for him to be joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you on here, Allan. Welcome.
I appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to some good discussions. We definitely not short on topics, especially today's current event. So.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, those current events, I often feel like kind of have been beaten with a stick, and the horse is dead to a certain point now. But I know you have a heart to serve people. So I appreciate you running for office. I think it's a blessing to have you on the ballot, and I know if you get elected, you'll do great things in Olympia. But why don't you tell the people that don't know you as well as I do, tell them a little bit about yourself and where you come from.
So I'm a naturalized immigrant from the Philippines. I arrived back in around 78. I still had I saw some pictures of my cousins, me coming off the plane out of Detroit. I was trying to figure out what the white stuff was on the ground, and it was snow. Still had my shorts and everything. So ever since then, I grew up in Michigan. And shortly after I graduated college, I went into the military. Was just expecting to do about 4 years, but I ended up doing more. I retired out of the military as a major. I originally started off as an enlisted, and again, it was never a thought that I was going to do a career, but I loved it so much. I continued on. This country has given me so much, has given my family a lot of opportunities, choices, and to strive hard and get to where we needed to be. And, my family says, somebody's got to give back to this country. And, I was just thinking about doing a term, and next thing I know, I did a career in the military. So I've got out. I continue to serve Legislative District 22 in various ways. I started off as a community activist, and then started getting some spotlights on all the things I've been doing in the community. And next thing I know, I found myself up on the Hill in Olympia, working legislative issues, and it snowballed from there. The passion and wanting to continue to serve and making sure our individual rights, our freedoms are secure. One of the things you probably heard me talk on the steps of Olympia is I want to, when I time out, when it's time, to go to meet with my ancestors, that I've left this world a little bit better than I came into it, and also make sure my child has every single opportunity and freedom, if not more so than I have today. So that's my goal. I'm an old war horse, and I'm just going to keep marching along until I give everybody the opportunity to succeed in this world. That's my goal.
That's a great story, and Allan, we're doing it for the kids, and as corny as that can sound sometimes, it's the truth. It's what drives people like you and I that genuinely aren't in politics for the fame, and oftentimes would rather not have it, but just to serve and to help and to make sure our children's lives are better, right? And I know you'll fight for my kid as hard as I'll fight for yours, and all the kids that don't even know who we are, right? That we want them to have the best life possible.
Exactly.
So corny as it may be, we are in this for the future, and it's important to leave them, like you said, something better than we had, and to learn from what we had as well. I'm sure there's a lot of life experiences you can reach back on. But before we get too far into it, real quick, tell everybody specifically what Legislative District 22 is. What paint
So
the picture
Legislative District 22 encompasses pretty much Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater area, to include the Capitol campus. So right here in the belly of the beast, as they say, right downtown. And so
how high is the swamp water where you're at? Do you need waders like knee highs, or like shoulder waders?
Well, if you go scroll through my Facebook, you've seen some of my my knee high gators that I've walked around. People kind of like, okay. But I just continue to you probably heard me say in some of the libertarian conventions: reach, teach, inspire, motivate, and educate, because it is our time. That's a lot of big focuses. I continue to I love to continue to educate on our individual rights and how we can better ourselves through free economy and reducing a lot of our barriers. We're seeing some of the barriers now, especially in this COVID recession that we have, and how detrimental, especially to mid-sized small businesses that are struggling right now.
Yeah.
For every one business that's closed here in Washington State, we have about 4 in fiscal crisis. So those are a lot of jobs that are being lost, not only across the country, but here in Washington State. Even though it's slowed a bit, you're going to get that. But, I just see in the future continued unemployment. It's going to be some hard recovery. Hopefully when we get in there to legislative session, we get to take away those barriers and help these small businesses recover as quickly as possible, get people back to work, and get our economy stimulated. So right now it's looking bleak, but we've got to make that effort to free up the market and take away these barriers that these small businesses are having.
Yeah, well, it takes people like you that are willing to go out there and stand up for the businesses, because right now there's a lot of politicians that claim they support small businesses, but they're eating up these lockdowns like it's Christmas candy or something, and it's not okay. So we definitely need to stand up for that. But something that I think gets lost in the shuffle is, you hear a lot right now. Well, we want to open the economy, and if you want to open the economy, it means you want people to die, right? That's the hardcore rhetoric that we've heard from Jay Inslee for 3 months. That now he allows people to riot in the streets and then lock down, continues to lock down churches, but a harmed economy harms us in a lot more ways than just fiscal.
Oh, yeah.
It's touch on that for a second, if you would.
So a lot of the platforms is to empower economic disadvantage, the impoverished, those that are unsheltered. And a lot of the left policies are trying to go in that route, but what they've actually done, especially with their fiscal policies, is create more barriers. By creating these safety nets, there's upward mobility is very difficult, and so I was reading some articles and basically looking at what the COVID impact is on small businesses. A lot of the folks that we see out there, especially in Seattle, or the service industries, even it's harming Black-owned businesses and minority businesses out there. Those are the ones that are getting hit in these subdivisions, and so there's a lot of folks that are disgruntled with that.
Most every time there's a regulation of some. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I think it timed out. The internet timed out for a second. I couldn't hear you. But so many times these regulations jump in, and it does hurt the people downhill that have the least ability to absorb the additional pressure on their business.
Yeah, most definitely. Uh, the state always focuses on a lot of these big businesses that are here, the international, the nationwide businesses. But if you add up all the small and medium sized business and how many they employ, uh, they're very impactful, And so again, the service industry, the health industry, has been hit uh, big time, and so one of the things I discussed earlier on in some of the interviews last week that I've done is we need to start looking at, especially the certification of needs, especially in the health industry. We need to get those that were laid off back to work. Also, what this does is it prepares us for future emergencies, just like that hit us. So now. Uh, you've seen even on the federal level them reducing some of those barriers. So the patient to doctor ratios and so on to be able to accommodate the influx that we were supposed to have. But this was what this COVID did is highlight a lot of the barriers that should have been taken out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I tend to focus on. So we are prepared better in the future if this happens again with another disease or virus that might affect our society.
Yeah, I don't think if is the right word. It's when. There will be another federal, national type disaster of some sort. And you're right. We have to learn from this situation. It's one thing to look at it and be mad. I think a lot of us are for reasons that vary person to person. If we focus on being angry right now, we're not going to do anything. We have to look at what was broken and what didn't work, and what the hangups were that exasperated the issues so we can make things better. But I know you'll have some ideas there, but talk to me for a second here. One of the things that, are important to libertarians is volunteerism, right? And we talk about small government, and oftentimes people can look down on that because they'll be like, well, if the government doesn't do it, who will, right? And that's how I got to know you was somebody that was out serving the community. So tell the people a little bit about your background of your street activism, and maybe one or two projects that you've worked on that you think had a bit of impact.
So I originally started as a road to healing, and when I came back from the wars, um, I, I've deployed multiple times, various areas of the world, from the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and so on. In this in my career, and so it was difficult for me to adjust, and so I used the volunteerism uh, uh, to help me put those plank backs to build that bridge back home.
Mm,
And so it was a healing moment. As much as everybody says, "Hey, we love what you do," but it was also a healing moment for me. And I'm also using a lot of the work I do to help veterans adjust, come back, and actually redirect some of their energies back into the community to help them come back
mm,
mental health wise. And so what this does also is a lot of veterans, they have a lot of skill sets and have a lot of leadership capabilities to add into other organizations. So as once I build their confidence back up, they become to take leadership roles in whatever their interest is, whether it's agricultural trades, the health sectors, and so on, or continue to work with mental health and veterans in a lot of nonprofits. A lot of there's nonprofits, there's a high turnover, so especially with volunteers. But
mhm.
getting them back interested in our community is also not only a mental health bridge, but the product outcomes for them, for the community, is a positive return. So that's how I started, and then it kind of snowballed from there. I'm currently the executive director for Heroes Promise. We work with Gold Star families, and the veteran community. We provide a lot of opportunity scholarships, means of emotional health therapies, um, and um, and and various other things. Under A Hero's Promise, we also have an emergency management directorate called Liberty Disaster Relief Services. We've been there ever since also mudslides to the Okanagan Fogo wildfires, and these are majority of them are veterans. So they're taking their skill set that was built for overseas combat, taking these their learned skill sets and now applying it with some tweaks to the new environment, which is the community emergency management, their leadership style, their organizational skills, and so on. So not only it's a bridging moment, but there's positive outcomes for their continued service. You probably heard that in my campaign. Continued service back into our community. So, well, I'm just instead of focusing on our foreign policy, now I'm having them switch to look at our domestic policies and using their leadership and their organizational skills in that way.
That's awesome. And I think stopping, or helping prevent a possible issue from happening, right? Maybe there's a scab there and the scab could get peeled off if you weren't there to help bridge the gap. And we see the number of veterans that are homeless is just heartbreaking, and the real PTSD issues and stuff. But to have somebody like you that can help give them a soft landing, redirect energy, and to be a friend and introduce them to others that have been through similar situations is huge. That stops the rising cost of mental health, right? Because it'll reduce the number of people that need that care, and you're not doing it with a pill, right? They're not getting put on medication to numb their pain. You're actually helping heal them.
Well, you and I, especially, we've brought some of these issues onto Capitol. We run into each other in some of the shared groups that we've had. You're talking to somebody who came back home, and that was the first thing that the military health facilities did was throw meds like they were candy. At the highest point, I was taking more than 2 dozen medications to help me stabilize. But what I found, it wasn't stabilizing me. It was making me more erratical. After I talked. So the doctors were the ones that finished. So I said, look, I need to stop. I need to talk. So I finally was able to talk to a pharmacologist who we sat down. I'm like, I need to get off of this because this the very thing that's kept me alive in my career, even on deployments, has now become a hazy fog. And so we went through it and slowly working with my health providers in different specialties, we were able to reduce it. Now I went from 2 dozen to 3. I am the best health, I think best health since I've come back. And I continue to strive to help veterans to do reduction and not so be dependent. And that's why you and I, we fight at the Capitol bringing alternative medications, holistic healthcare back. And it's definitely will help reduce cost and so on. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of solutions out there. And my thing, as a libertarian, right, is understanding that we're not all the same. We don't all need the same thing, and we all have different values. So while one person maybe wants the pills, okay, that's cool. I'm not judging you, right? And I know you, and I know Allan isn't as well. If you want more of the natural stuff, awesome. Maybe that's not for me. Maybe it's for you. More power to you. The key is to present ideas to people and to give them more knowledge, empower them to make more educated choices, and to give them as many choices as possible. Because right now it's take these pills and good luck.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. We fight to reduce these barriers of access to choices, more available choices in the marketplace, and so especially when it comes to people's healthcare needs. And I think that's we've discussed that before, especially during legislative sessions. So there's a few shared groups, like you said, that's we fought on the Hill a couple times.
Yeah. Well, and it's really taught me a lot watching you, is because I'm hypercritical of other politicians. There's only a tiny handful that I would be willing to sit down with and genuinely invite them over for dinner because I think they're good people. I think a lot of them sell out really quickly, and you're somebody that I've seen do the hard work in the rain, right, in the sleet, when it's not fun, with no cameras around. Allan does a ton of charity, folks. So much charity, so much activism. He shares some of it, I think, to encourage people, but I guarantee you, for every one picture you see of him doing something, there's about 300 more that didn't get taken. And it's because he's out there day in and day out, weekend and week out, helping people. I think the first time I actually met Allan in person was at a street feed, feeding the homeless in Olympia. And I want to tell you real quick what my experience was, and I'd like you to fill people in um, on kind of the entirety of the program. I show up on a Saturday morning in Olympia, I think 7 a.m., 8 a.m., something of that nature. There's already a huge group there getting things prepared. I'm usually the early guy, and there's people there before me, and Allan was one of them, first off. But what was mind-boggling to me is I could see the Capitol over our shoulder, the capital of our state. And here are, 100, maybe 150, maybe that day, different homeless people. And I just thought, how terrible is this, that in our own state capital, um, we have this homeless issue. And then I started thinking, well, DC is kind of the same way, even at the federal level, right? So we have these politicians who have these nice, beautiful buildings, these marble buildings, these monuments to power. And half a mile away, there's Allan Acosta serving the people breakfast. So Allan, tell us about that program.
I've worked with Crazy Faith Street Feed for almost a decade now, and then there's a Sprinter's Street Feed that's done by Mama D called Joyful Hands that serves on Saturdays. And so, we get to not only address food insecurities within our community, which is coming from I want to say second world country. So, we're kind of developing in the Philippines now. I don't want to say third world country because we're not there anymore. We're continuing to move up. But that we still here in one of the, greatest countries in the world that we have of opportunity, supposed to be opportunities, is that we have food insecurity where 1 in 6 American families are struggling to eat. I thought I'd only see that back home, but I don't see it here in America. I'm like, whoa. And I know how it feels to be hungry, and it's not fun. And in extreme cases, it hurts. It hurts, and so I didn't want my community, especially the ones that are struggling, to feel that hurt. So. Chief Ben Charles with Crazy Faith and Mama D have done. They've taught me a lot of things. It also opened my eyes to some of the shortfalls in our policies. In I think I want to say 2003, Seattle had this great program that said we want to eradicate no more homeless in Seattle, King County, and so on. Now, fast forward to where we're at today. I think we're at the highest now of homeless, and especially with the COVID, people are going into fiscal crisis that actually will end up domino affecting to increase with the homeless. Before the COVID was happening, the largest population that was what we were finding out was our elderly who are on fixed income. As the cost of increase continue to rise, they get caught in this downward financial struggle. And then the other population that we get is our timed out foster kids. I've recently, I want to say in the last year and a half, I worked with Thurston County Coalition Against Trafficking, which is specific to Thurston County, but they also work with a larger group. I go there just so I can now understand, because uh, before it was when I first started, we had a lot more food insecurity. So a lot of people think it's just our street family. It is not. I think when you went down there in the morning, you saw people, food insecure families, come out with their kids at the bus stops. And it was an eye opening for me when I first started. I was like, how can this be?
Infants, even.
Um,
Yeah, that will forever stick with me, is seeing infants.
and then also the things that we failed to continue to fail to address is the mental health issues, um, and so on. So next, when we did the point in time count, especially in Thurston, number one thing that came up is uh, they're already on the poverty line economically, and then they lose their job or some of that effect, and then the financial crisis happens. Their personal financial crisis happens, and then they find themselves out in the street. The number two that shows up is the mental health aspect of it, and we already have a nationwide shortfall of psychologists and mental health folks before this COVID thing happened. And we need to try it. It almost reminds me of the late 70s, early 80s shortfall with nurses, and where the United States had
Yep.
to import those in from other countries. And a lot of it came from the Philippines because their education system was pretty similar. The Philippines education system was built by the Americans, so it was an easy transition to look for nurses over there, especially English being a primary business language over there in the Philippines that is taught. So it was an easy transition to look to the Philippines to fill that professional gap. That's how a lot of my family members came over, is they were in the medical field in one way or another, except me.
Yeah.
Typical. I went a different route, but that's how a lot of my family came over. Is they were contracted out and came here to the United States to fill those professional gaps, whether it's doctors, nurses, and then some of them were brought over because they had specialties in engineering, and so on. So, and that's how we came over, and then obviously they petitioned us, and my dad petitioned my mom and I, and then that's how I got over.
Wow. I think you touch on a couple of things, and why I really wanted to share your story a little bit here with the folks that are turning in, and those of you that are, make sure to start a watch party, like the page, send up your comments, share this in your different Facebook groups so others can hear Allan's message, because he's the right type of leader, that leader and leader and servant, equally so in Olympia. But why I think it's important that we touch on these pieces of activism you're doing is because you're two things. One, you're providing solution where government has already failed, and two, you're staving off other issues that government would then fail at later. So you're doing things right now that are already saving the taxpayers money, because you're helping people be healthier. You're reducing the cost of healthcare and health insurance because you're helping people. And there's so many things as a community we could be doing to make ourselves healthier that would affect things like insurance. And I think there is an indirect correlation to these things, and frankly, a pretty direct correlation as well, right? We have, healthcare is expensive because we have a lot of sick people, and then you touched on, availability of doctors. And that's something that, I've got a friend who works on a hospital board, and she made a good point to me on Facebook, or excuse me, on Instagram today, actually, that I hadn't considered, in maybe the context she had. There's not enough teachers in the medical field anymore, because there's just not a lot of schools for it, and then the schools that do exist don't necessarily pay the professors what they could make just teaching it or working at a hospital. So there's a lack of education happening, and that's slowing the number of medical providers that we have in a lot of ways. So we need to do things here in Washington to bring in more medical providers, to use the free market to incentivize people to want to become a nurse, because there's so many people right now that I've talked to, doctors, that are leaving the medical field because it's such a stress on their lives. They're overworked, they're overburdened. The insurance system is a nightmare. What are your thoughts on, again, allowing people from other countries to come in to help lessen that burden now, right? Licensing reform, and also opening up more schools and colleges, and maybe reducing taxation on those professions, or others, of course, to really make sure that in Washington we're training more mental health providers, that we're training more doctors and more nurses.
Right now, we've had the shortage of mental health providers and social workers and counselors for quite a while. I know this topic has been around for, I want to say, the first time I've heard about it about 3 years ago, and then actually looking at it a little bit more closely, I think it's kind of like the scenario that we're seeing back in the late 70s, early 80s with the nursing shortages. I think that is a good possibility to be able to open up the market and being able to be more lenient, especially with our immigration work permits, to be able to come here, and then probably incentivize, if they decide to stay, to be able to establish a profession here in order to help us. And what this does will buy time for the universities to focus a lot of their energies to meet these professional skills gap that we're definitely needing. The mental health aspect is big, especially in the homeless area. We have a mental health center that is right next to where street feeds, and one of the things that we have difficulties is actually filling those roles that to meet the needs of those folks that are on streets that are struggling or need the help. And then on top of that, we've seen lately the conflict that's arising, especially with law enforcement in regards. And one of the things that was raised up in the discussion is, maybe we start looking at the scope of work for the police officers to reduce the contentious areas, because when you become a law enforcement, you want to catch bad guys, and so we need to use the appropriate tool to address the current issues that we have. So I don't think you need to use a police officer to address a mental health crisis that's on the streets that's going on. What you need is somebody who's trained in that field to be able to understand better. The police officers have a lot on their plates already, so maybe the division of work, the scope of work for our law enforcement will help reduce what currently triggered a lot of some of the stuff that we've seen in the past with in our communities. And obviously we're looking at, as libertarians, we look at the over criminalizations that we have. From minor offense that can easily escalate to felonies, and then in some cases a loss of life where it shouldn't have happened. And so these are things that I've been reading up, looking at. You definitely need, in order for us to move forward with what's going on today, this is definitely what we need to bring these community leaders together. Especially one of the big things I want to see is the unions step up and take some of these challenges and add that to their scope of responsibility. I know President Trump has already signed some law enforcement reform, but we need to go further than that in order to prevent possible things that might come up in the future.
Yeah.
We've done this, when we're always assessing our units, or making sure that the units that we activate or deactivate we're making sure that we have the right tools to accomplish the mission, and that includes the unit function. And maybe that's what we need to take a look at with these departments and find a way ahead.
Yeah. So if we want to help the police, we need more mental health, not training for them necessarily, although that could be helpful, but we all just need more mental health therapists out there. So we need more schools. We need more people that want to go to these schools. And one of the things that I talk a lot about is taxation, in the sense that, we have a lot of politicians in Olympia and in DC that claim they want better mental health care, and they claim they want it to be more accessible, and they claim they want it to be more affordable. But at every step of the way, they slow the release of goods and services, and they increase the cost by adding fees, taxes, and such on it. So you mentioned certificate of need laws. Touch on that just briefly for a minute. Tell the folks what a certificate of need law is and why you think that could help open up more mental health facilities.
So by taking away this certification of need, so for health administrative and staffing requirements, sometimes these certification of needs and are barriers for them to for patients to continue access in those developments. So by taking these barriers away, it frees up the hospital to better provide services. They're not handcuffed or they're hamstrung, especially when it comes to patient and health provider ratios and who can do what, and so on. Especially, one of the things that I've talked about in the future, especially our military folks that are coming out. They're highly skilled, highly trained, especially in the medical service field. And then they come out here and they do a lot more than what their civilian counterparts is, but yet their qualifications don't transfer.
Yep.
And it's something that I've worked with some of the governor's policy advisors that actually brought some veterans to share some of their testimonies and so on. And these are force multipliers that we can use and put in the medical health industry to better tackle, if in case like what we saw here with COVID with emergencies, where they need the influx of these health professionals, and that we can do that without these additional barriers. Well, in order for you to be able to do these kinds of treatment, you need to have this certification.
Yeah.
Especially if they've already done it. These guys are highly trained. I've seen them. They save a lot of my soldiers on the battlefield. So if they can do that on the battlefield, I don't see why they can't do that on our communities.
Yeah.
As a whole.
Yeah, so there's so many regulations that prevent a new medical facility from opening, and then the medical facilities that are open, there's regulations to prohibit them from expanding or adding different departments, or adding different services that maybe they hadn't done for the last 5 years and they want to bring it on board now, and that just slows the accessibility of things. And as we all know, that the less there is of something, the more valuable that commodity becomes, and the more valuable it is, the more expensive it is. Yeah. So of course their costs are going to go up. So I'd love to work with you when we get into Olympia to open up more mental health facilities, more hospitals, more family medical practitioners. And if we also want to reduce costs, I think we could remove taxes on them. Right. There's a shortage of people wanting to go into the industry because it's so difficult and, hard to be maybe a sole provider of sorts of small family medical facility, and they're getting taxed at, 25% being a doctor. Yeah. Right. And they're out there healing people. So why are our doctors being taxed? I think there's so much we could do. I want to kind of fireball a couple things at you here, spit them at you. That didn't make sense. Spit them at you. That was stupid, people. Edit that out. Oh, wait, this is live. Can't edit. I got a couple topics. I want to know if you will help me add a couple things in Olympia that will make people's lives better. So real quick, just about 20, 30 seconds on each of these topics. Labor's an industry, L&I insurance. What are your thoughts on bringing in private labor and industry here in Washington and insurance in that form?
Oh, I'm on the same boat with you. I'm all about, privatizing what we can, opening up some competition and reducing costs to the taxpayers, and that's one way we go about this. So we've tried it the other way and it's not working. We've seen the costs continue to go up. So why keep doing the same thing over and over and thinking, we're going to get the same results? We looked at, I know we've had some discussion even with the transportation issue here in the state, and what it looked like to be privatized, and especially when a lot of it is 70% of it is it's really unused, So we see these transportations that's going around the city it's barely filled. But the taxpayers' dollars are all over that. So
Yeah.
we've seen many examples around the world of where we can cut costs and it works. I believe you privatizing, especially the L&I industry, I think will have a better effect. What was that? Milton Friedman says, if the government controlled the Sahara Desert, we wouldn't have any sand left, right? So we're just I've seen it even in my career. Government just so wasteful, and the return of investment for the citizen, it's not good. So I think there's other approaches that, and I'm open to any other avenues and to be able to take a look at that. So
I think we've all heard. I think we've all heard probably 99 negative stories of how L&I claims work, and maybe 1 out of 100, goes okay. So, I'd love to work with you to bring at least a private option, and give people a choice to opt in or opt out or to buy their own. What about private unemployment insurance? We are seeing the Nigerians have just scammed Jay Inslee's unemployment insurance, that we all, all of our employers pay into, which then means we get paid less. So what are your thoughts on what's going on there and having a private option for unemployment insurance? Again, just briefly.
Oh, that, well, all we have to do is look at what government's doing now. And so it's not working. So sometimes we just gotta let government run with it and say, hey, you see, it's not working. Why are we going to continue to do this route? To have any options is for me right now. Aside from the government way, I'm down with it. Because we've seen this trick pony time and time again, and I don't know why we keep falling for it. I really don't. So
you're saying stop doing what doesn't work.
Exactly. We see the effects. I'm like, how many times do we stick our hand in the flame? I mean, and say, hey, it's gonna hurt. And right now, when people are struggling, when we already have an 8.8 billion deficit shortfall here. And we only have about $2 billion in a rainy day fund. So either we tighten up our belt, or we're already seeing from the left, taxes.
Yeah. Would you vote against the state income tax?
Oh yeah, okay, most definitely. Right now, I don't think taxes are the way to go. The thing is, we've seen other cities, states do this even before the COVID, and we've seen the continued failures. Even it's like when you see your neighbor fall, hey, there's a brick there, don't trip over it. But we're going to do it again anyway. So we've seen other states go this route. There's historical economic precedents from other states that, they tried this. Why keep following it? There's other ways we can tackle some of these problems and so on. And raising taxes is not going to solve our problems. What we need is to get back to a healthy economy as fast as possible, and that's be taking away these barriers and let these mid-sized and small businesses get air back in their lungs to be able to start up in these communities, recover in these communities. And when they recover, guess what? They're going to start employing people again. That means they're going to start paying people again. That means people are going to spend in the local economy again. But sometimes we like that vicious circle. It's almost like a self-cutting attitude. It just, I don't know. We've seen other states in the past do it, and we continue to head down that road.
Well, just for the record, the incumbent state insurance commissioner, who shall go nameless because he doesn't deserve the credit, he supports the state income tax. So, folks, if you do not want to see your income get stolen from you further, you need to vote for Allen, and you need to vote for me. And you can go to our websites and donate to us. We're going to give you those links in just a minute, but I want you to start checking your bank account right now and make your giving so large and bountiful that the career politician that I'm running against will have a challenge in office. What about gun insurance? That's been a hot topic here that a lot of people follow my campaign. Gun liability insurance. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, with Washington State, especially blocking some of those, and especially your opponent, a lot of it is, I think, what I'm seeing in the Capitol now is just you got a few shot callers out there, and people just pressing the button, whatever their party, instead of thinking things through and saying, hey, is this the right thing to do? Instead of doing what's the popular thing to do. I want to do the right thing for not only my legislative district, but for Washingtonians. And I'm not going to always do the popular thing. It's because I believe in my heart it's wrong for Washington State. As a libertarian, I am always going to afford you choices, because we all know that the best person to live your life is not government dictating you, but it's you. And that's why, it's like I tell people I'm running to give you choice and responsibility. With freedom comes responsibility.
Awesome.
So I'm about choice and responsibility, and the three tenets, the three core tenets, pillars that has guided me through a lot of my actions with the Libertarian Party philosophy is the voluntarism, the non-aggression principle, and that you own yourself, your self-ownership. So, and these are things that guide me through a lot of the decision-making skills when it comes to policies and regulations. I lost you there, buddy.
Sorry, I had to pull him down because he had to step off camera for a second.
Okay.
So if you could please tell everyone where they can find your pages and all of that stuff.
Okay. So currently, you guys hear it first. My webpage. Hey, welcome back.
I'm sorry, Alan. Technical difficulties is, I've been traveling in a travel trailer for 9 months. I had to go start the generator outside to power the trailer here. And so, yeah, go ahead. We'll wrap here. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, all that good stuff, and where they can give you money.
So I'm announcing it here first on the Be Free show with Anthony Welty. My website should be online this Monday. A lot of my opponents candidates are doing their campaign kickoff around the end of the month. As you know, March for Our Rights is coming up shortly, 27 June at the Capitol. So our permits has been declined, but I'm not going to move it. We have the freedom to assemble, but I think it's really important to highlight our individual rights, Bill of Rights in the state, and get that back into the people's consciousness, especially coming up to this legislative session. and just let you know that it's going to be awesome this year. But I'll announce that later on Monday. But you can find my website come Monday, and also have a donate button on that website, voteforallen.com. And also you can find me on Facebook, Life, Liberty, and Pursuit of Happiness, Allan Acosta. And you can find, and you could pretty much see the trends of what's important to me, especially in these platforms. Economic recovery is big that I'm going to be focusing on the legislative session. Educational choice is another one. We've seen how contentious that is, and especially my child is going through the system right now, and I want her. We've discussed it with her mom, and we don't like the statistics of what's going on with the current public instruction. I think that needs to change, and especially how intrusive a lot of stuff that's going on in our school, and obviously being able to take a look at the homelessness and food insecurity issues here within the state, and try to take a look at that really carefully, and how we can better manage and try to redeem the percentage down. My goal I would like to see is in Washington State being single digits again when it comes to the homeless issues.
Awesome. Well, Allan, I appreciate what you do for Washington, what you do for my family, lobbying in Olympia and doing the work that others don't want to do. You're one of the reasons why I'm running for office now. There's a handful of 2 or 3 people that I first kind of got to know when I got involved and started waking up to some of what was broken. You're one of those people, and watching the pace you keep, how hard you work day in and day out, really set the bar for me on who I think is at the top of the heap when it comes to giving a damn and actually doing the work day in and day out. So that's why I work so hard, is because I have somebody like you to look, to look up to in a sense. And that's why we've been on the road in the campaign trail now for 2.5 years, trying to serve the state of Washington and educate people on a position that the general public doesn't really know exists, doesn't really know how much power it has, doesn't know that one guy's been in that role for 20 years, doesn't realize that 90% of his money comes from outside of the state of Washington, or doesn't know that 50% of his money comes from corporate insurance lobbyists when he's supposed to be a consumer protection agency. So letting people know, these things and working so hard to serve Washington is very important to me. I appreciate everybody that's been supporting my campaign the last 2.5 years, tuning into this show tonight, hearing ideas from others so that that I'm not the only person that thinks like that, and to help people like Allan get into office so that when I also get elected, I've got somebody in the legislative halls and chambers that I can count on to do the right thing for Washington. We'll have an ally in Allan if we get him elected. So if you support my campaign, I want you to know that I wholeheartedly endorse Allan Acosta for State Legislative District 22. He is the right man for pretty much any job in Olympia, as far as I'm concerned, specifically representing his district and helping all of Washington be more peaceful and prosperous. So check out his campaign website, follow him on Facebook. You will love the heart and the passion that he has. And together with Allan and myself and all of you, we can make Washington better. So if you can make a donation here today, AnthonyWelty.com, help push me through the primary. We've got 30 days till election. Ballots 30 days till about the ballots drop, and about 45 days till election. And we've got a primary race with a Republican that's not capable of serving office, and a Democrat who is also not capable of serving in office. So help spread the word for both Allan and I. And in the meantime, be free. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a good night.
Peace.